like something magical is about to happen.
I know. I keep waiting, but I guess this is it.
All right.
All right. So this is our first episode
Of Open Hearts. I figured it would be good to kind of tell the people what made you decide to start this podcast.
Oh,
and I guess you could say who we are too.
Good question. So I was actually inspired by my husband. He started a podcast with one of his good friends about MMA, everything MMA. They love it. It's almost pretty much a hobby of theirs. And I said, you know what? I think it's a great idea to connect with people I work with, but just start one with something that's important to me, which is being a CTPA. And then it kind of expanded into, let's just talk about other things. Right. Yeah. And then you came. So, bouncing off of you.
Wonderful. So,
what inspired you to kind of do this as well?
So, one thing that's kind of been resonating with me for the past year, or past couple years now, is the idea of how powerful your word is and how important it is to recognize that and to speak things into existence. So, like, for instance, you had this wonderful idea and you shared it with me, and now here we are creating this podcast, and you made that happen with your word. It's pretty awesome.
I think it was gonna happen for a while, but it actually, this is like, I feel like this is like a long time coming.
Right.
But baby steps. We did, like, I feel like we were like just writing down on literally paper.
Our notepad.
Well, my kids wrote on it, but paper.
They're part of the process too.
Yeah, they've been part of the process. Our ideas, and then we came up with the name, and then it just kind of, here we are, first episode.
Exactly.
All right, so how about this? So let's start with the basics.
What is introduction?
Yeah, introduction. So I guess where you're from, what prompted you to be a PA, and when did you become a PA?
All right, so my name is Astrid Henry, and I am originally from Brooklyn, born in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
From two Haitian parents, and I feel like that's important because my parents have been a big part of my upbringing and shaping me into who I am today. And I feel like as I kind of grow into who I want myself to be, that they're still pretty influential even in my adult life as to who I am. And so in becoming a PA, they were very significant as far as I was always encouraged to focus on my books and focus on school. And then when it got to work, it's like, all right, now it's time to get a job and work. Right. And this is the way things go.
Right.
And, but as far as becoming a cardiothoracic PA, I feel like it goes way back to 10th grade. We dissected fetal pigs. And so, I don't know, just had a flair for that scalpel.
Good. Where did you first hear of what a PA was?
Oh, so the PA profession I didn't learn about until it was later in high school. Actually, one of my family members influenced me. She was a PA after my grandmother passed away. It was one of my aunts through marriage. She was a PA, and then she became an OBGYN. So I kind of was like looking down that path, but I got some literature in the mail from the school that I ended up going to, and it just sounded wonderful to me. The fact that you could go, and it was a 3+2 program that in 5 years I could go out there and just be a professional working and really working in what was interesting to me.
Right.
And kind of like cutting the fluff out of the way. I didn't learn till later that's not really normal for most people.
So you were always sort of leaning towards medicine, doing something in medicine?
Yeah. So it's funny because it's kind of been like an uphill climb. I had so many mentors, so many teachers telling me like, oh, well, why don't you do something with English? And, you know, you could be a teacher, like be an English teacher. I used to write a lot too. But I always loved the life sciences. It always very much intrigued me. The math, not so much. But that's kind of what I started leaning towards. And then by my meandering path took me to respiratory therapy school. and because I always like heart and lung stuff.
Right.
And yeah, it's pretty much thrown into the cardiac ICU that way. And
I feel like most people don't know that about you, that you were a respiratory therapist.
Yeah, so I never really practiced, but as soon as I graduated RT school, literally like the same night,
Right.
my cousin and I, because she was in finishing her DNP at the time, but she helped me pack the rest of my things into my car, and we hopped in my car and drove from Syracuse to, well, she drove herself halfway. She drove to Pittsburgh, then went back to work the next day. Then I drove myself from Pittsburgh to West Virginia, and after I graduated respiratory therapy school the next day, orientation for PA school.
That's so funny. And how long were you a respiratory therapist?
So I did the program from 2010 to 2012, and pretty much just finished my clinicals and went straight to PA school. And then beginning of PA school is when I took my test and became certified, registered, but went straight to work as a PA.
Well, what year was this?
So PA school was from 2012 to 2014. So as soon as I finished respiratory therapy school, started PA school right away.
Nice.
And then I never got to really practice as a respiratory therapist aside from school.
Right.
But I really enjoyed my time in the ICU there. I think that's where I kind of lean towards critical care.
Yeah.
And really being interested in that part of CT surgery as well.
And PA schools love that. Like when you have some sort of exposure in the hospitals.
Yeah.
And I remember that was, I think that was hard because I was on, fun fact, the admissions committee for Wagner for...
Really?
Yeah.
How do you get to do that?
I don't even know how I got involved in that. But I guess during, I want to say it was like the last couple of years of PA school, if you were interested in joining the committee, you can, because as a graduate student, you were in the interview rooms for people the incoming classes. So I was like, that's pretty cool.
You got to tell the students, run away.
Yeah, exactly. Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure? So I was on the admissions committee for a little bit. So I feel like that was a hard thing because I don't know. I remember sitting like across the table and it was so intimidating. There were 4 or 5 people maybe in my interview room. And one was the director of the program. There were obviously other students there. Maybe a clinical advisor was there. And I remember that was a big thing they asked was prior exposure to hospitals or clinics or some sort of shadowing, which I actually did not have. So that was a big, I remember that. That's interesting that you were able to get like good exposure like that.
Yeah. So that's why my meandering path turned out to not be so bad. But it was a struggle for me at first getting into PA school. Because, like I said, I liked the life sciences, but other things like organic chemistry, I struggled.
Oh, God.
Even microbiology, like I loved the content, but I felt like I didn't really know how to study for the tests so much. So I got some not so good grades before I got really good grades.
Yeah.
So my original plan of the 3+2, which actually I think your program ended up being one of those where you got out pretty early, young.
Yeah. You did it in 5 as opposed to the 6.
Yeah, so that didn't work out for me, but I ended up finishing after 4 years with my bachelor in health science. And then after a little bit of crying, my dad was like, hey, do you ever think about respiratory therapy? And I was like, oh, I always liked the heart and lung stuff, so I went off to respiratory therapy school. That's when I came back with a vengeance with my grades, and I was like, why not just apply again?
Just go for it again.
So I applied for PA school, and so I got in after that.
Nice.
But it was a struggle for a while.
Yeah.
And then so when I finally got in, I was like, yes.
And now look. And you've only done CT.
So I first got out and did a general surgery residency for PAs. And so I rotated through different surgical subspecialties. And then from there, I always wanted to do CT before going to PA school. So I thought maybe the residency would make me more well-rounded, and I'd focus on CT. So in PA school, I did an elective in CT surgery, and then also during the residency, my elective was 2 weeks in the CT ICU and 2 weeks CT OR.
That's really cool. That's right. You were...
Yeah. Oops. We can edit that out. It's at a pretty popular hospital. But yeah.
That's where we met.
Yes.
See, these are the things we gotta get used to.
Yeah.
Name dropping.
So I feel like as far as my journey to PA it was so much of a fight, and there was so much of my heart went into it.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot I kind of had to learn, I think, about balancing out life. Because school was it. It was like the primary reason for life.
Right.
And so my parents focused me to feel like, okay, this is it. And then, so why did I go to school? So that I could work. And then I went to work as a CTPA. So when things didn't go as smoothly as I wanted them to, it was like my whole heart, my whole world was crashing.
Crashing down. Do you feel like that initial kind of letdown was almost to your benefit?
Absolutely. Because I feel like that's what led me to being more open and to really just exploring what's out there in the rest of life, and finding my inner joy, which now I'm able to share with everyone that I work with.
Right.
And yeah, I just feel like if I probably would have continued on that path of like making work everything, if everything did work out the way I wanted it to.
Right.
And I wouldn't have had to look at all the rest of life, you know.
Right.
So yes.
That's really awesome.
Yeah. It's interesting, even today in the operating room, I was thinking about how like something as simple as cutting a suture used to fill me with so much anxiety.
And now it's almost just
it's
like you just go in and just go in and do it now, right?
Yeah.
I know. It's funny when you do something for so long and it almost just becomes like second nature.
A thought came to me today. I was like, so much of it is just being open and ready to receive. Because when I got to where we're working now, I feel like I wasn't open. I was more closed off. I wasn't as open, and maybe in that same respect, wasn't really ready to receive the things that I wanted for myself.
And do you feel like by opening up, do you feel like it's made you better at your career?
Absolutely. So I remember some years back, I think it was a reference to a scripture actually about like being open. And I remember writing something about like being open. Sometimes it hurts. Like it's being closed off. It may or may not keep you from getting hurt. But then I think by being closed off, we definitely close ourselves off from the things that the good things that are waiting for us to come into our lives. So I think by being more open, it made me better ready to receive what's coming
down
career-wise and in all other aspects of life. So sometimes it hurts, but it's like people are people.
Especially
but then at
surgery.
the same time, exactly. But at the same time, it's just like, oh wow, like all the good things come when you're ready to receive them.
Yeah, I feel like especially you have to almost kind of accept that when you do open yourself up, you have to be prepared to know that you're not doing everything right and you are doing things wrong, and accept criticism and all these things, which I think makes you extremely vulnerable.
Right.
Because it's people seeing, I don't know, weaknesses.
It's scary.
Right?
Yeah.
It's really scary.
It's putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
But then that's where the magic happens, right?
Right. Yeah. And then exactly. And then you kind of come back and do better. Try to do better. Yeah, it's funny how like it's such a vulnerable place, I feel like.
But it's funny, I was thinking like being in the OR, the thoughts that pop up sometimes, it's like, all right, focus. But it's so applicable to the rest of life. Like I was in a mitral valve case today.
Right.
And the surgeon likes to pass the needle through and says, okay, like get a needle holder.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm open. I'm ready to receive the needle.
Right.
And it's letting go. Letting go when the surgeon tells you to let go.
Exactly.
And that's the rest of life too. It's letting go when it's time to let go. So there's just so many life lessons that you can apply to your work.
That's actually a good point. I didn't even realize that. Like, even if you feel like this isn't right, I shouldn't let go. Yeah. You have to let go.
Yeah, the captain told me to let go.
Right.
That's it.
So you gotta let go. That's true. That's actually, I didn't even think of that.
So many times where I wanted to fight what I was being told to do, but that didn't really help me.
Yeah, that's a huge thing, right?
Yeah, realizing the people who have come before me, who have been there for several years, who have experienced a lot more than I have, yourself included, who know what they're doing. It's like, all right, sometimes you just have to listen.
Yeah.
And let go and be guided. Let yourself be guided.
Right.
You know, by the wisdom that has come before you.
That's why I think it takes like a particular personality, I guess, to kind of really thrive, I guess, in the OR. I think a lot of personalities are in there, but I think like there's, you can see almost who thrives and who constantly
like a struggle
has a struggle in there. Yeah, every day.
But at the same time, I like to think that people can be coached, and if you're willing to be coached, if you're coachable, I guess it is like you're saying, it's a certain personality. Like there has to be a certain element of willingness to be coached and to listen and to follow.
Yeah,
to really make it,
for sure.
But I think it can be learned.
Yeah,
for sure. It's just there has to be that willingness to learn.
Exactly, which I think some people have a hard time doing.
For sure.
And then also to like, I guess, learning how to not forget, but kind of let go, and then come back the next day.
Yeah.
I guess almost with a clean slate.
That's true. And that was something that I had a hard time with for a long time. And just studying different philosophies, different wisdoms in life, I've learned that maybe it's part of my nature is holding on to things. I've learned that about myself. But I learned that wasn't helping me. And like, if every day I'm like, oh my gosh, yesterday I couldn't cut that suture, and now today I cut that suture, and it took me too long, and it's all piling on. It's just like, that's not helping me to carry every single thing every single day. Yeah, that's something I struggled with a lot early on. Like I felt like I was taking my job and I was taking it home with me every single day. I would be like in the car on the drive thinking of what I didn't do or what I could have done or what I missed or what I should have done, and then going home and still thinking about it, and sometimes even texting or calling my colleagues and saying like, hey, what do you think of this, or what do you think I should have did, or did I miss something, can you look for me really quick, or and then going to sleep, not having the best sleep, and then waking up and thinking about it again. I feel like part of that is what makes you great. It's what makes you as great as you are. But it's finding that balance where you're still okay with yourself at the end of the day. And another thought that comes up about being open, and because it puts you in the space where you can get hurt, but then there's that balance of how to take care of yourself. You know how to get back to being okay and being ready the next day to try again, to do again. Right. Yeah, that was something I struggled with for a long time. And then I think I got to a point where, and I almost kind of know when I got to that point, and it was actually when I came to the current job, maybe like, I'd say a few years after I got there. I just kind of got to a point in my career where I feel like I told myself, so I went in, you did the best you can, and that's all you can do. And I think once I got to that point, I was just like, okay, there's an Emerson quote on my locker, and I saw it when I was in my previous training. I was like, I gotta find this and put it on here. But it's something like, there's whatever happened, and like the absurdities have crept in, and but now I've got to find the exact quote, because it's just that's it. Yesterday was yesterday, basically. Now there's today, and you're rising above yesterday is the essence of that quote. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I definitely felt like I got to that point in my career already. I have to say though, I've always admired you. I feel like watching you, I feel like you're tough stuff, Aww, you're so sweet. And just like the way that you carry yourself and that you kind of move forward, like that's something I always admired in you. And, of course, I've benefited from you helping me when I was crying in the locker room. Oh, you're so sweet. Because I've been there. Like I can look at you, and then I remember like when you were really upset that day, and like I remember being in that situation. Like I've had many days
where that was me. I was crying about my job, and maybe this isn't for me, and maybe I'm not good enough, and so I got it. Like and people telling me like, maybe you should do something else, maybe you should consider something else, and I never wanted to hear that. I remember how frustrating that was, like hearing that, and so that's why I think I saw like a lot of almost myself in you, because I just remember that feeling, and then like you feel like hopeless.
Yeah.
That feeling of like, well, now what?
Yeah, because there was never a plan B.
Right. I didn't have a plan B. I was like, I don't even know what to do, because if I didn't like, if I wasn't in cardiac, I didn't have a plan B. I didn't know what else I truly liked. I had some interest in, I guess, obstetrics, but that was it.
It's an interesting coincidence.
Right, exactly. But that was it. So yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So that's why I think things like this are important too, because you never know how much your story is going to help somebody else, and how much just by sharing you can really inspire someone and help someone along in their journey. So I'm looking forward to that here in this space, that we can give hope.
I think we will.
Yeah.
I think when you kind of hear honest and open, I guess, perspectives, it helps out a lot, I think.
Right.
Honest, not and
right.
Hold on a second.
Well, we went on our little break.
We did.
I found the Emerson quote I was thinking.
Oh, what is it?
Finish each day and be done with it. You have done what you could. Some blunders and absurdities no doubt crept in. Forget them as soon as you can. Tomorrow is a new day. You shall begin it serenely and with too high a spirit to be encumbered with your old nonsense.
I like that.
So I have that on my
That's
locker.
perfect. That's a perfect quote for a locker, because that's where you go at the end of every day.
To like get rid of my own nonsense. Like, all right, that's it. That was yesterday's nonsense.
Yeah, that's the perfect quote.
Now.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But yeah, before you stepped away and you gave me time to reflect on it, you were saying the importance of sharing honest perspectives and just really honesty. And I was thinking that that's something that, unless we're really, really practicing being honest with ourselves, it can get harder and harder to actually do. And along the lines of kind of what you mentioned earlier, like I can't count the number of times that I've heard, well, maybe you should think about doing something else, or you need to be more this way, you need to be more that way.
Yeah.
And the more I were to agree with those things and think, oh, but I'm not that, but I'm being told I need to be more aggressive, for example. Like, oh, I need to be more aggressive, but I'm not, or I need to be more whatever it is. But then if I'm not those things, or I don't think I'm those things, then I'm being less myself. And I feel like I need to be a certain way that people think I need to be in order to make it. And then it gets harder and harder to share myself and who I am if I'm constantly trying to mold myself to what other people are telling me I need to be. Whereas it's a balance again, because to a certain extent, there are things that are advice and counsel that are very useful, that if I listen to try to do something a certain way, I'd be more successful. But yeah, it's just that fine balance. It's easy to kind of veer another direction, I think.
And do you find that there were times where you believed what they were saying, and then you said, okay, maybe I'm not supposed to do this. Maybe there is something that I can look at, or...
So I feel like I got into a space of despair at some point. Because in my heart of hearts, I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
But then there was that seed of doubt. It's like, isn't it? And it's like, if it's not, then what am I going to do?
Right.
Like, what do I do with my life?
Right.
And so that was very hard to kind of pull myself out of.
It's kind of like you hear something enough, then you just start to believe it, right?
If it's coming from more than one person, then there's got to be some truth to it, right?
Exactly.
And if I start to agree with that, then that's when it kind of becomes more my reality.
Right. Exactly. But almost the more you heard it, it was almost like you personally, this is from what I observed with you. I feel like the more you heard it, if anything, I feel like the more you pushed forward.
Yeah, it took me a while to get to that point, but yes.
Which is huge. That's a big deal. A lot of people probably would have went another way or kind of took another path already. But you, I feel like it was almost fuel for you. You kind of just kept going and going and going and going.
Yes. But I feel like all you need is like one or two people to tell you, like, you got this.
Right.
Keep going. And it's coming.
Right.
And like the patience part was huge, which I think a lot of times I thought I had more patience than I did.
Yeah.
But I did have a good, actually now I have a lot of patience.
Yeah.
But that was helpful to have, for instance, even you to say like, listen, like you don't need to go anywhere else or do anything else. Just sit tight, like take the opportunities as they come. You're going to get there.
Right.
And at least to hear that from, for instance, someone who's actually in the work, that was huge. And of course, mom and dad are always like, just, do what you gotta do.
Keep going. Yeah, I feel like I saw that like a lot in you, which I swear it's hard because I've seen literally people get told the same exact thing and they leave and they get placed elsewhere. But I feel like people saw that in you, and it almost was like, I don't know, it was just so motivating that they just decided, like, all right, this is where she belongs. This is it.
Yeah. So I feel like I said, again, it's I do have that openness, that willingness to learn, and that's something that I had to practice over and over and over again. Is okay, like, what am I hearing? What are people telling me? What do I need to work on? And then at the end of the day, I still feel like that's nothing without people actually giving me the opportunity to work on that. So that's something that I've been so grateful for, that it wasn't just like, all right, kid, this is not for you, get on out.
Right.
But still, I had people around me that are like, okay, like, here, give it another go. Like, you have this chance, or at least have this exposure, or have this little element, this little step to kind of help you. So
do you feel like, because I know sometimes, this is just in general, it's just like, sometimes you want to be honest with people, and people take it the wrong way, and they don't really kind of absorb what you're saying, and they just almost, actually, they do the opposite.
So I feel like a lot of it, I've come to learn that a lot of times the way we respond to people is kind of reflective of how we feel about ourselves, or how we respond to ourselves, or like our inner dialogue. So one side of the coin, I think, is when we're trying to tell people something that you want to be constructive. I always try to think, okay, is this going to help this person? Is it helpful what I'm going to say? Do they need to hear this? Is it necessary?
Right.
And then tone does matter. The way you say something to someone. I mean, sometimes I feel like there's times I need to hear it straight. Like, listen, this is what you got to do.
Right.
Snap out of it.
Right.
Other times I need like a, more gentle. Like, all right, like, let's. Yeah. But I feel like until we're able to have that, like, the compassion for ourselves, and it's giving ourselves kind of a space of grace and understanding that there's still a way to move forward. It's kind of hard to take criticism if we're already critical of ourselves. Kind of, like you hear it, it's like, ugh, well.
But do you feel like there's some people who will just not be receptive to criticism? And I'm trying to think of an example, but I'm having a hard time thinking of an example. But if you tell someone, okay, so in this situation, you did this. Next time, maybe do this. And the person, they're listening, and then fast forward, similar situation happens, and they know what you said to them, but they still think their way is the right way.
That can be dangerous. And yes, I think there are situations where some people are kind of like the know-it-all attitude.
Yeah.
Which is a very dangerous attitude to have in our line of work.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Or they just think that, do you think there's just people that, I don't know if I'm saying this right, that just don't get it?
Don't get it? I don't know. I would like to say that there's a method of learning that fits each person. So,
that's interesting.
As someone who is, I kind of like do have that interest for teaching. Mm-hmm. And one thing my dad always said, because he was like a math teacher back in Haiti, but he always said like there's like a different way. He's always really good at correcting his teaching based on what he was seeing from his student. So I'd like to believe that there's a way. I guess I'm full of hope, but I'm like, there's hope for everyone.
There's a way for everyone
to teach that person that they would get it, like to learn what you're saying. There's a teacher for everyone, kind of.
That they'll be receptive to.
I think so.
Do you think that makes a good teacher? Learning
you can adjust, your teaching methods based on what your student is showing you. Like, you can kind of gauge, okay, I said this, but did they really understand what I said?
Because I feel like in our field, I'm sure there are people that are like that, and very good teachers can do that. But I feel like in our field, a lot of it, from what I've seen, is their way or the highway.
Sure, some people are just hard-headed.
Yeah. It's my way or the highway, and this is how I'm going to teach you, and this is how you need to learn it. And if you don't, sorry.
Yeah.
Tough luck.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Which I don't know what the right answer is. I see both sides, because I think that there's a lot of things, especially like in our field, that's just very matter of fact.
Right, there are rules to keep people safe.
Right, and this is how it has to be done, and for patient safety and the best interest of the patients and everyone else in the room.
Yeah,
this is how it has to be done. But then I also see how, or I can see how, sometimes maybe you have to go about showing or explaining it differently to different people. Yeah,
for sure. And then, surgery is not for everyone. So sure, there are some people that's like, just no, like, no, you're just not getting it.
Right. Yeah, because we have people that we know that we've worked with that used to do it and then left and kind of just do, floor work or stuff like that now, or tried it for a little bit and said, no, this is not for me. The OR is not for me, and I'm going elsewhere. So I think when people say, do they have an OR personality? When people say that, I think there is some truth to that, because I don't think it is a place for everyone.
But at the same time, I feel like it's a blend of personalities that make it work.
Yes.
Because I feel like classically, they're like, oh, this is the bunch of field for type A people who want to be in control all the time. And at the same time, like, I feel like, okay, maybe I do like a sense of control, but I don't necessarily need to be the person who is guiding that, who's the main controller, I guess. Right. It's like, all right, just tell me what to do. You can tell me the steps. Right. And that's maybe part of why I struggle too, because a lot of it's like, sometimes you just gotta figure stuff out and people expect you to just know what to do. But it's like, all right, like, let's just go, like, you're driving and I can go with you and not get in your way. And that reminds me, there was another lovely quote that I saw in the height of the pandemic. One of the PAs that I like to follow on LinkedIn, Dave Bunnell, he was a blogger for a long time. So yeah, I remember he wrote a little piece, and it said a lot of times that something like the job of the PA is to lead, follow, or get out of the way, or knowing when to lead, follow, or get out of the way. So I think that's really important. That applies a lot to surgery. It's like, okay, you can't always lead. But it's like, am I going to be helpful following in this case? Or sometimes it's just, I'm most helpful recognizing when I need to get out of the way.
Huge. That, I think that's like, if you get that, and they're very like, and you'd say, oh, that's easy. I can, and that's, I feel like that's a lot more difficult than people actually realize until you're actually in there. And that's a huge thing. So that's, what's his name?
Dave Bunnell.
That's huge. Yeah. I feel like that is.
He was a CBS president at one point. Actually, he's the immediate past president. Yeah.
That's huge. Yeah. because I've had surgeons tell me, stay out of my way, or you're not helping enough, or you're doing too much. So it's like finding that right
for all those
balance.
different personalities. So it's like being able to sway and bend, but not break.
Exactly.
Because we all have an idea sometimes in our heads of, okay, this is how I want things to go, and this is the way things are supposed to go. But things happen, things change, and as we know, especially in CT surgery, like things could go rapidly. Exactly.
South very quickly.
Change very quickly. So it's like, all right, just being able to have that fluidity within ourselves to go with the flow and help things run as smoothly as possible, whether it's by doing or not doing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's huge.
It's always making a decision, making a choice every moment.
Yeah. And also, like, I know I had a situation with someone where, like you said, learning when sometimes too much is literally too much. Mm-hmm. So if you sometimes you think you're being super helpful, and it's good to be helpful, but I feel like a lot of it is reading the room, as they say, like reading the situation, reading the people around you, and say, okay, how can I be helpful here? And sometimes recognizing I'm doing too much. I have to like step back. Sometimes I'm being more helpful by stepping back and just waiting till they ask me to help. Yes. Literally. And you may feel useless. And you might say, I'm just kind of standing here. But you're being more helpful than you are hurtful, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I feel like that comes with like the finding the inner peace. I feel like there was a point, actually, when I first started our job, like where sitting down quietly, it was like painful. Like, what do I do? Like, what's next? What am I supposed to do? Like, I'm not being helpful. But it's just like, it was me not being able to be with myself.
Right.
And then the more that I kind of like did my, like finding myself, my deep breathing, like finding my peace, it's like, all right, now I'm kind of like have this inner peace with myself. And now I don't necessarily feel like I'm useless when I'm sitting down for a moment. Like, I'm not necessarily in a flurry of activity, you know?
Yeah. I make a joke where I'm like, there's like sometimes there's a part like in the procedure where like I literally stand there and do nothing, but I make a joke and I'm like, no one's better at doing nothing than me.
That's it. This is my role, right?
But yes, that's where I shine. But I make a joke, but it's because that I think, like you said, that's where you know that
Or like I try to keep in my mind, I'm paying attention, like I'm focused on the field, I'm emanating positive energy to my colleagues in the room.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly.
There's always something.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't always have to be moving your mouth or your hands all the time.
Exactly. Sometimes just observing and learning and kind of taking in what's going on. Right. Sometimes you almost learn more doing that.
Right.
Than actually physically doing something.
Right.
So I felt like a lot of, that's a good point, because I feel like a lot of learning was for me kind of watching and listening and kind of like hearing everyone in the room and kind of feeling out the atmosphere and kind of, getting a real idea for what was going on. I feel like I learned a lot by just literally not doing anything and just watching. So, yeah, I think that's an important thing too.
Yeah. I feel like for a long time, I didn't really know like what details to pay attention to. Mm-hmm. And I was just like trying to absorb everything, but I guess like I thought I was paying attention, and I heard a lot of times that I wasn't paying attention.
Yes.
But it's because I was just trying to absorb everything.
Right.
And so now, as I'm able to focus more on little details, like let's say how someone's holding their instruments, or what is this assistant doing, or which kind of suture is that?
Right.
Like I realize how much more I'm able to pay attention, on how much I wasn't able to kind of focus on those little details.
Same,
before.
yeah. Watching someone's hand movements or where their fingers are placed on the instrument and where they're holding, when they're trying to help out, where they're actually suctioning. That's like a huge thing too. I used to look at that a lot. Like, before I started first assisting a lot, I used to like watch my seniors. Okay, where are they putting the suction right now? Where exactly is it? And where are they holding the suture when they're following? And like try to get a feel for like how much tension they're holding with, and like little things like that. Like, where's their right hand right now? Where's their left hand? What's in their hands right now? And maybe there's nothing in their hands right now. So a lot of that like little small fine detail, I think, was super helpful for me.
And I'm smiling because I'm remembering something one of my other professors told me, which is you can observe a lot by watching.
Yes, see? That's huge. That's a good one.
So it's like you're not necessarily taking everything in just by watching, but you can if you so choose.
Exactly. Exactly. Nursing. It's exhausting.
Yeah, so tell us more about life. How do you balance everything as far as being a mom of 3 and being a cardiothoracic surgery PA?
Oh my God. I don't know. Although I will say this.
Sounds in the house.
That sounds in the house. Checking for any cries. I will say this though. Being, I think, a CTPA has helped me also as a mother. Because I learned a lot about dealing with stressful situations, multitasking, and kind of also accepting when things aren't perfect and I'm not always doing things right. And then kind of waking up the next day and doing the same thing all over again, but with a fresh start, fresh perspective on things. So yeah, and then also being chronically exhausted.
Always on call.
Always
mommy
on call.
Duty or CTPA duty.
Yeah, because I feel like my first job was much like that. I feel like I barely got sleep. I literally lost weight like my first 4 or 5 months because I barely ate. I was just running around like crazy. And it was just like the hours were grueling. I was doing so much, and I feel like I'm almost doing that now, just differently, just with my kids now. So, 2 very different things, but I feel like it helped me.
It's all connected.
It's all connected, yeah, in a sense. And those late nights and being up on call, being on call and doing a case, into the wee hours of the night, and, night shifts and 24s and now look, with my kids, I'm like up every few hours and up at 5 or 5:30 in the morning, and so yeah, I feel like it actually helped me a lot, and kind of helped me quite a bit actually. Now that I look back and I'm like, it almost prepared me, I think, a lot for motherhood, and finding, I think also too, I think I got to a point like in my career where not so much that I'm comfortable and I feel like I'm okay, there's nothing else I want to take on, because I'm always open to learning more. There's still things in CT that I don't know and I still need to learn, and I'm always learning, but I think I got to a point in my career where I was okay stepping back and not doing as much or being there, feeling like I need to be there as much as I was before, and saying, no, I'm okay not seeing that. I've seen a lot of those. I'm okay not doing that. And saying, okay, I can take more time for my kids and, going home.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard. It's still hard. I think a lot of what I like about our job is you do have a lot of flexibility. There's jobs where you can work 3 days a week. There's jobs where you can work 4 days a week. There's jobs where you can work 5 days a week. So a lot of that I feel like is to our advantage, especially as a mom in this career. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of, which is part of the reason why I think the field was so attractive to me. Because I said, wait, I can work 3 days a week.
Was that always a plan of yours, like the family life and the flexibility for family life?
Yes, that was a huge thing. When I think that I met a neurosurgery PA, she was super young, and she told me she worked 3 days a week, and I was like, I thought that was just like, I'm like,
You didn't know that they packed 7 days of work
into
3 days.
Exactly. At the time, I didn't know that, but I thought that was just amazing. I'm like, 3 days a week? I'm like, and that's full time? She's like, yeah, that's full time. And she also, I remember she was doing like per diem work. She's like, yeah, and I do neurosurgery, and then I don't know what it was. I'm just making it up. It was like, I can do ortho, 1 day a week. And I thought that was just amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like the flexibility that we can get. You can choose to work nights only. You can choose to work days only. Some jobs you obviously can't pick and choose, but there are some jobs that are looking for night PAs only or day PAs only. So,
yeah. I remember when I was first starting out that someone told me, yeah, most PAs I know have 2 or 3 jobs. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I know. And you're like, what? So, yeah, it's hard. It's still hard, but I don't know if there's many careers that you have that kind of flexibility. That I'm saying, like, pay as well. You get benefits. You get a pension. You get like all these security, the sense of security, I should say.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like what I do like though is that I think that I went so hard for like, I've had kids the last 3 years, but prior to that, I feel like I guess 9.5 years, almost 10 years I've been doing this. So the beginning of my career, I feel like it was all I had. It was just like my career, doing as many cases, taking on as many shifts, trying to see as much as I can. So I do think, I guess.
Would you recommend that to anyone who's coming into the career? Because I look at it the other way too, where I feel like, from our school, when they told us about the option of residency, like, oh, you're used to it, working, being in school and doing all this stuff. It's kind of easier going into that where you're working all the time, and then you can kind of like relax into somewhat of an easier career if you choose.
Right.
Versus, do you think it's harder when someone comes in and has maybe somewhat of a lighter work schedule and then coming into CT surgery?
For me, I feel, this is just my opinion, I feel like it depends on what type of CTPA you want to be. There's, if your goal is to, let's just say you just want to do the floor. I think there's a difference between doing that versus doing everything. OR, floor, ICU. I feel like going hard initially and taking on as much as you can initially, I think is only to your benefit. That's my opinion. And I'm glad, like I always wanted to get married. I always wanted to have a lot of kids. So I think when I was kind of in my early 20s doing this and single, and I can do reverse 24s and 36 hours plus. I think, I'm glad that I took full advantage of that. I think that was a huge plus, and I'm happy I did that looking back. Yeah, very happy. Yeah. So that's that. So now I think my issue is kind of finding balance. I think I'm still trying to learn how to balance it all.
Well, I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
I think that inner peace is there.
I'm still kind of learning. And like I said, I've learned to kind of step back and not take it home with me so much, which I think is a big deal, because I come home and I don't have time to take it home with me.
Home is there.
Because home is there, and there's kids screaming when I get home, and they've got their things going on. So I kind of have to focus on that and being a wife, and that's another thing too. You forget that your kids are there, and you forget I have a husband. Oh, don't mind the alarm in the back.
We can cut that out later.
Yeah, we'll cut that out later. Hopefully it's only once. Sometimes it goes off twice and it's so annoying.
I'm feeling like it's gonna come back up.
Is it dying down?
It's gearing up.
Yeah, see the alarm. Wait, is it dying down? I can always tell by the... Okay, good. yeah, I feel like that's another thing. It's like it's work, and then it's your kids, and then I also have to remember I'm also a wife, and that's a huge thing too, to remember. Wait a minute, I have a husband. Yeah.
So there's like this whole thing of balancing your very many roles and how you see yourself and your different parts of your identity. And it's not just, and that's something that, like, I guess comes over time, especially if you jumped right into things and you're like, all right, I'm gonna go extra super hard. It's like, this is who I am. CT surgery PA is who I am. But then it's like there's always room for expansion and other roles, and they can all coexist together.
And it's hard. Like, it's intimidating, because I feel like when I was sort of, you know, coming up, as whatever, however you want to call it, but I saw girls that were older than me, that were already moms or married, kind of stepping back, and I would hear a lot of them saying, well, I'm going part-time, or I'm leaving CT, and some of them went to office jobs, some of them went to medicine. I saw people go into GI, I saw someone go into derm, and then that always kind of scared me in a way, because I would say, well, maybe that's going to be me too. Maybe I'm going to have to kind of like try to figure out another route here. Like, I don't know how I'm going to, and I would hear a lot of them say, well, I have kids now, and with my kids, and so I think that was always kind of in the back of my mind too. Am I going to be able to do this? I mean, so far I've been, but that's huge, right? Because, you know, you still take call if you choose to continue to still take call and be in that type of job, but it's not the same where you just picking up your phone and you get dressed and you grab your bag and you leave. It's like, okay, my kids are sleeping. Do I have a babysitter? 2, is everything like set and ready for them? Is like their food okay? And it's unpredictable. I don't know when I'm gonna come home. I've thought I was going in for cases that, you know, were going to be straightforward, and I ended up being in there. Something I thought was gonna be a 5-6 hour case, I was there 12 hours one day. So there's always that fear, you know. So that's something I'm still kind of learning how to deal with, or how I'm going to deal with it. So, yeah.
Would you have done anything else, or looking back, do you wish you did anything else differently?
No. I'm happy with what I did and what I chose, and so no. I would say no. Yeah. So what about you?
Well, I still feel like,
What point do you feel like you still feel like?
I feel like I'm at the point where I have tons to learn, and I had to kind of like calm down a bit as far as my inner anxieties, my inner self-doubts, and I mean, I was always very hopeful about being this magical superstar in my job and everything that I wanted to be. And I feel like I'm finally at the point where it's possible for me. You know, like there was a moment not too long ago, like maybe a few years back, where it was starting to feel like it was not possible for me, or that I'd have to, I don't think I ever wanted to do anything else, but I was like trying to reevaluate, like, is there another way to get to where I want to be? Like I told you, I contemplated, even after my general surgery residency, do I need to go and do a CT surgery residency now? Like,
right.
And it was a lot of negative self-talk. It was like, oh my gosh, like, do I suck so bad that I have to go back and do something? But it's like, okay, but now I have a house, you know? Like, and I can't just be an educational nomad like I was. Like, I have a house to pay for. And how is this going to work? Like, I live here now. Like, school's done. I have bills to pay. My student loans want me to pay them back. But,
the adult things.
Yes, exactly. Ugh. My parents tried to warn me. So, but I feel like I'm at the point where I do have tons to learn, and it hasn't all come about as rapidly as I initially wanted it to, or I guess the pace that I was used to at first, because I was used to working all the time, like 5 days a week, and, even when I started this current job, I was working my other job in the city before the pandemic. And so free time wasn't something that I really knew much about. Oh, however, I still did make it.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, I'm going to go to, when I wasn't working, I'm going to go to the state to visit this friend. I'm going to this baby shower. I'm going to that wedding.
Which you still do.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm still very, like, I'm invigorated in my career, in my learning. It was kind of like, over the past couple of years, a renewed enthusiasm about learning. So I started to go to different conferences and just, like, even though, like, there was the doubt of, like, is it really going to happen? But still, I'm going to learn this instrument and that instrument. I'm going to learn this device and that device. I'm going to listen to this rep and that rep, even if it's the equipment that we're not using right now, and learn what I can. And who knows when it might be useful. And so now it's like, okay, like, time, ready to bring it all together, you know, like, ready to kind of, like, rise up with the proper attitude.
Yeah.
And then getting those skills up there.
I feel like you're there too. Like, I mean, I've obviously, like, I've worked with you a while now. And so I feel like you're at that point. I feel like you have all the tools. You have all the knowledge, literally. Everything is there. And I feel like you are at a point where now it's just applying, and then just keep going. Yeah. But I don't feel like you're at the place where it's like you also need to, you know, do it 24/7 either. I feel like you've done enough.
Yeah. But I always kind of wanted like a boot camp. Like I always said, like, just
you
throw me in there 5 days in a row, 12 hours for 5 days in a row for a couple weeks, and like let's just.
But you've done boot camp. Like, you've done that. You've stood there when you didn't have to stay there. You went above and beyond, like, your hours, or what was required of you, I should say. You've done that. Yeah. So I feel like you're, from what I see, like, you've got it. Like, you've got all the tools. Now it's just, you're just kind of
the shiny EVH.
Yeah, you're there. You're there. It's just a matter of doing, and applying it now.
Yeah. Just gonna flap my wings and fly.
That's it. Time to, like, that's it.
Yeah. But I think, I would say, assessing myself, like, my mindset is finally in the right place. There was a time where I was fighting myself, and that was my biggest detriment. Just looking around and thinking, like, oh, like, why is this happening to me? But it's like, all right, that's not going to help. It's not helping anyone. So, you know, it's like, all right, just go get it, girl.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly what I think. I think now it's just, you're just getting it. You're just going and you're getting it. Yeah, and now you're at a point where, like, I feel like people are, like, looking to you. People are, like, new people are coming on, and you have so much experience. And people are, like, looking to you now. What would Astrid do?
Honestly, that's always been... Oh, our camera's done, but it's okay. That's always been part of my vision, is to help other people along. Because we know the struggles. Like, we know it's a long road. And I feel like we're all here to kind of help each other along in life. Yeah. In this pathway, so...
And I feel like watching you, like, how much you've grown... Like, over the last, like, few years, it's really, I'm very proud. Yay. You have grown so much.
Yay. So yeah, I'm glad. I'm happy for that, and always willing to keep confronting myself and calling myself out on my stuff, on my nonsense. Yeah. And just happy to be able to be of service to other people, you know, to the patients, to my colleagues, actually be useful to the doctors that we work with.
Yeah. They're huge. It's huge. It's huge. So, yeah. All right. This went really well.
This has been nice. I guess we can wrap this up.
So that was our first recording.
Yes.
Yay! Many more to come.
That's right.
So this is Open Hearts, episode 0.
And Astrid Henry and
Trisha Cato
signing off.
See ya.